Welcome to the Strategic Veteran, where we chart the course from service to civilian triumph. I'm Adam Peters, a veteran, entrepreneur, and your fellow navigator in the quest for a life of impact and fulfillment. My mission is simple: to empower you with the tools and stories that turn challenge into opportunity. Having walked the path from active duty to where I stand now, I understand the search for purpose that comes with hanging up the uniform. It's a path I've walked, with its trials, its tribulations, and its victories, and it's a journey we're on together. This podcast is more than just conversation. It's a beacon for those seeking to redefine our missions through entrepreneurship. It's about igniting the entrepreneurial spirit that lives within us, the spirit that compels us to create, lead, and make our mark on the world. Here we connect with veterans who have built businesses, sparked change, and found their purpose in the marketplace of ideas. They're not just surviving, they're thriving. They've transformed their service into startups, their experiences into enterprises, and they're proof that you can too. So whether you're scribbling business plans on napkins or stepping into the arena of innovation, remember, you're not alone. You're in good company. So let's explore these stories of transformation and take the first steps together on our path to purpose. Let's begin. Hey, and welcome back to the Strategic Veteran. I'm your host, Adam Peters, ready to guide you through another episode where courage meets enterprise and service meets innovation. Today, we're diving into the life and lessons of Tony Tondrow, a veteran who has seamlessly transitioned his battlefield acumen into a thriving business that heals and empowers. From his early days in the Air Force to his current role as the founder of Positivity, Adventure, and Wellness Coaching, Tony's journey is a compelling saga of resilience and reinvention. After serving with distinction, Tony faced the daunting challenge of redefining his purpose in civilian life. It wasn't just about finding a new career, but creating a movement. In today's episode, Tony will share how he turned adversities of post-service life into opportunities for growth and service. He's not just building a business, he's crafting a sanctuary where veterans and others struggling with trauma can find strength through the great outdoors. Stay with us and see how Tony exemplifies exactly what it means to be a strategic veteran, transforming challenges into opportunities that redefine what's possible beyond the uniform. Tony, thanks for being here, man. I really appreciate it.
Hey, thanks, Adam. This is a cool opportunity. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. So let's just jump right in. Why don't you tell everybody kind of where you grew up, what life was like for you growing up, and kind of what inspired you to join the military?
Yeah, I was a military brat. My mom was in the Air Force. She was security police back then. My dad was in the Navy, and moved around quite a bit. I was born in Denver, Colorado, or Aurora, at Fitzsimmons Army Hospital, and ended up immediately moving down to Florida for like 5 years, where my mom got stationed in Tyndall. And then we moved to Tennessee, back up to Colorado, and then I finally graduated high school in Nebraska. So moved around quite a bit.
Yeah, it sounds like what's home to you? If you had to say, I'm attached to this one place, what would it be?
I mean, I spent most of my time where I felt like roots were able to, get established, if you will. I would probably say Nebraska. I started, fourth grade all the way up to when I graduated. But between kindergarten and fourth grade, I probably went to like 8 different elementary schools.
That's insane.
Yeah.
I went to the same one, and then the same middle school, and then the same high school. So it's like that's not something I understand, but I can imagine. Nebraska, another win for the Midwest. I was born and raised in southern Indiana, so
yeah,
similar landscape there. Lots of corn.
Lots of Milo, lots of cattle.
So would you say your parents probably were heavy influences on you and the military life, and kind of is that what kind of your path always looked like growing up? Like you knew you were just gonna be like mom and dad, or was there like a moment where you were like, this is what I want to do?
Yeah, it was really off my mom. Grew up mostly as a single parent. Dad was out of the picture for most of the part, and mom was Air Force. Loved her journey through it. Really talked about it quite a bit, and I kind of knew that was the path I was going to take. I even tried to get into the Army because I was very interested in Army Rangers, and brought a recruiter home and everything. And mom was like, it was pretty embarrassing. She kicked that guy right out of the house. She's like, nope, nope, he's going Air Force. He's already dedicated. Thank you. And I'm like, whoa, 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 hang on a minute here. So, but yes, Air Force is very strong in the roots. And then uncles and grandpa and stuff like that, they were in the military as well.
That's cool. What was your job in the Air Force? What did you do in the Air Force?
Yeah, it was security forces. So,
Followed right in mom's footsteps.
yeah, I was gonna go PJ. I was scheduled 3 times to take that exam, and then every male has the opportunity. Well, at least when I don't even know how it is now, but when I went through, every male had the opportunity in basic training. But I had a guaranteed position in security forces, and I knew that I remember that lifestyle with my mom, and you still get to play with guns and shit like that. So it was, so I was happy with that and content, and just stayed with that career.
I like it. And did you retire from the Air Force, or did you get out?
I got out early. After my second deployment to Iraq in 2006, I ended up leaving after 10 years active duty, and I ended up getting into federal law enforcement.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll get to that part of
Yeah.
it. So, obviously the inspiration was from mom. You ended up in the same job with her. You mentioned 2 deployments. So I was also in Iraq from the tail end of 04 to January of 07 to March or April of 08. So
Yeah.
we were there, a lot of overlap there.
Yeah.
Just give us some key highlights from your military career, and kind of what influenced you to get out after your second deployment. Was it just not for you? Did you get injured? That's kind of my story. I was medically retired after 12 and a half years and 4 deployments, the last one being to Afghanistan. So
Yeah.
my career was cut short. I would have hit 20 last year and then probably retired. That was my path, but it didn't work out that way. And I just like to kind of establish, what we're going to talk about with the transition, and how much influence the Air Force kind of has on that transition process and all that.
Yeah. The 10 years, there was a mixture of both, kind of the Air Force side of things, right? The quality of life, and then to include a big mixture of Army regulations, Air Force security forces, and especially when you're getting into air-based defense, it's all based off of Army regulations. And even my second deployment to Iraq, I was assigned to the 101st Airborne. We were a small detachment assigned to them. So it was a unique experience to be in a field that is very transferable to these other brother sister agencies, organizations. And I feel like when it started out, I was actually stationed in England for 4 years. And so, really cool part of my career that got me exposed to different cultures in Europe. I got married for the first time over there to a Turkish woman. So I got to travel Turkey for a little bit. First TDY ever was a vacation, like straight up something that you would expect from the Air Force. I was in South France for 4 months in 1999, lived in a 3-star hotel, had free rental vehicles, topless beaches. I was just like, a kid in a candy store, man. So very like I said, Air Force kind of deployment, or TDY, you would expect. And then it progressed from there. Went to Saudi Arabia in 2000. I was actually in Saudi when the USS Cole got hit. And we sent a 13-man team to go over there to secure that site until the FBI and Marines showed up. And then, again, just watching Iraq take off. September 11th happened. I was still stationed in England. I was actually supposed to go on leave, or I went on leave September 10th, and and we were supposed to fly over to Turkey September 13th, and clearly none of that happened, right? And I was recalled back, and ended up getting stationed in the States after that. So for me, growing up and then kind of moving around, and then getting into that same aspect with my life, moving around a lot in the Air Force security forces, it was I was used to that. It was very normal for me, right? Heading over to Iraq, that first deployment very hands-on. We were the guys securing the base. It was in Kirkuk, Iraq in 2004. And one thing, and you got to hand it to the Army, they deploy as an entire unit. And it's those, you guys had the longest tenures there. You guys are spending 12, 18 months there. Even the Marines don't spend that long over there. And so you got to really give it to those guys. And in my second deployment to Iraq in 2006 with the Army, really opened my eyes to the family that establishes within the Army. You guys are just so, you have to be close. You have to be close. And there were some real friendships and bonds created within that I recognized being stationed with those guys. But I only spent 7 and 8 months over there at a time. 6 months is typical. The other 2 months are transition. But we had a high ops tempo. And the way the Air Force deploys is they send 13-man teams from all over the world to one location, and then that creates the unit. And when you have that type of rotation, gone for 7 months, home for 6 months, gone for 7 months, home for, that it's one of these kind of things. And then in between that time frame, you're doing all the training and gearing up to, you need to prep for doing that mission. So for me, it was really a lot of, family is a big deal for me. And at the time I was starting a family. That didn't work out. I ended up going through a divorce, and I just kind of started feeling the fatigue with all the moving parts, right? And again, being in Iraq in '04, definitely hands on, small arms firefights, explosions, rockets, RPGs. That was all very normal stuff. And in 2006, we were really more on base, but oddly enough, we encountered some casualties within the 101st that they were rockets coming in, and our guys are responding and being the primary on some of those things. So it's a very versatile career, security forces. It's a law enforcement aspect, but when you go over to overseas, you are in a rules of engagement kind of area. So for me, it was kind of that 2006 deployment. I was like, I think I'm good. I feel fortunate. I never lost any friends in that type of aspects. Had some very close calls for sure. Again, mortars or rockets coming into our position, and we're working the towers, the DFPs and things like that. But I'm lucky compared to many others. For example, you mentioned how you were medically retired, and those are the folks that I continue to still want to work with today. And getting into the federal law enforcement side of things, that transition, we can get into that a little bit deeper, I guess, but it really allowed. No, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I was sorry. Yeah, no, we're definitely going to get there. Just trying to paint an accurate picture of who you are. So when we start talking about the actual transition and kind of all that. So my next question would be like, where you're at today, and with everything that you've got going on, we're obviously going to cover it, but I'd like to cover now, what skills do you think the Air Force gave you? And not necessarily why, but just what key skills do you see from your time in the military, all the lessons learned, all the experiences, right, that you use on a regular basis? And the reason I ask this is because, the belief for me is the path to purpose, back to purpose for veterans, is through entrepreneurship. And in that, I believe that we spend our entire careers developing these high leverage skills that give us an advantage coming out of the military to the civilian world and into building businesses. And we don't realize we're building those high level skills. And so, a large part of my mission and a large part of my system to teach veterans how to do this is kind of pointing out those skills. So That's the reason I'm asking these questions, because I think it's very crucial. We start learning those skills very early on in our military careers and just don't realize it. So if you wouldn't mind speaking to that for a minute.
Absolutely. I think you're right. You hit the nail on the head here, that the military, and I don't care what branch you're in, the military teaches you a vast array of skills that are transferable to this civilian world. For me, leadership is a big deal. I mean, I can talk leadership all day. I love the topic. I think when you even look at uh, how the military sends, these brand new, they literally train you from the beginning how to make a leadership decision. Like, I remember one of the first things that I was taught, and I wasn't even a leader yet, as I mean, I would say certified leader, but it was make a decision. You make a decision and then adjust as needed. And I think that's when you're talking entrepreneurship, that's a huge skill, to be decisive in times where you need to react to a situation, right? And now I don't want to say like we can always live in that type of kind of mentality, because I think that leads to that post traumatic stress if you're always in that fight or flight kind of response. But it allows you to think quickly in these moments that a decision does need to be made. And it gets you past this level of indecision. And I have seen it in the civilian world left and right. Indecisiveness is a crippling aspect of society, I feel. And it's not to judge anybody. It's just that they haven't been trained to make these decisions in a timely manner. So I think that's a big part of it. And that kind of speaks to that leadership skill. And in the schools, you look at somebody that gets promoted in the civilian world. Are they really going and getting trained? If you're good at this job and then you get promoted because you're good at that job, it doesn't mean you're going to be a good leader. That's a different job. The military understands that. We know you were down here. You just made this rank. We awarded you this opportunity. Now we're going to set you up with the right skills so you can succeed in that area. And they send you off to a leadership school, which is another 3 to 5 weeks. And
Well, and not only that, but you're also evaluated on a yearly basis based on your performance as a leader, which informs whether you go to the next level or not. Now, I know the Army and the Air Force do promotions differently. For example, for E5, from E4 to E5 and E5 to E6, you have to go to a board with all the battalion first sergeants and the battalion sergeant major on it, right? So they're the determining factor. And then obviously, I think E7 is the same way for you guys. It's DA select, right?
yes.
And but it's just a paper board, so that's when your NCOERs really matter. And I love that you're speaking on that, because it's not that way in the civilian world.
No.
They promote based on connections and who knows who, and not on merit and leadership ability and performance and everything else. So
Yeah.
I didn't mean to cut you off. I apologize for that, but I think it's important to paint this picture, because it's very true, and it's something that I noticed when I got out as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And, it just really speaks to, I mean, those are the things that the military takes into consideration. Like, that is serious. It doesn't matter what branch you're in, rank is there for a reason. And they want to prepare their people that are getting into these higher ranks for success, because that's how the mission wins, right? That's how the organization wins. Um, and so for me, I would also say, like, some of these other skill sets, communication, being I've heard the term cocky quite a bit, but it's confidence. It's confident. I'm confident in my ability to be able to do. I know what I'm good at. I know what I'm not good at, and I think that really speaks to a Type A personality that the military is. They got a lot of those types of folks, right? Especially if you're in the fields that we were in.
To tell people, and it comes up a lot. The first episode with Rich talks about it. The infantry, particularly for the Army, I can only speak to the Army, but it's a vastly different Army than the rest of the Army.
Yeah.
It's completely different, and things are done completely I mean, it's still militarily done, wide, but the standards are stricter, and more is expected of you, and the consequences of bad leadership are higher,
Yeah.
right? And so, I love that you're speaking to those things. It sounds like leadership is probably your jam, right? Like that's the one skill that you're taking away from the Air Force.
Yeah.
I mean, because there's so many different skills. You hit communication, you hit problem solving, right?
Yeah.
Adaptability. You've talked about
Risk
all those, but
management, risk assessment.
right. Yeah. And the list goes on and on and on.
Yeah.
And so we don't need to beat a dead horse. I just was really curious, like what skill do you value the most? And you've answered that in spades, and it's leadership. So
Yeah.
now let's move from when you got out of the Air Force. You made that decision that you're going to get out, and then you enter federal law enforcement. And I'm going to try to do my best to kind of bring this all together, because I really think the the greatest loss any military member experiences is when the day they ETS or retire or get out, right? Like that is, and I didn't realize this. I can't take credit for having this realization. One of the other veteran podcasts I listened to, very large creator, had another guy on there, and he pointed this out on that show, and it really really hit home for me because I hadn't been able to see that before. And so, did you struggle a lot with the transition from the Air Force to federal law enforcement, or from federal law enforcement into the civilian world? So let's kind of establish how that went real quick, because for me, it was definitely the minute they told me I couldn't be an infantryman anymore, it was a downward spiral for me. And,
Yeah.
This isn't my story. This is your story. So just to kind of paint a picture of what I'm trying to.
Yeah. And real quick, I just want to add here too how you mentioned the infantry is very different than the regular army. And that is the exact same with security forces in the Air Force to the rest of the Air Force. It was the biggest thing that was always preached was, since you enforce the standards, you must exceed the standards.
Of that.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's so good.
So it was very that we were the infantry for the Air Force. Now that transition out, it was hard both times. It was harder to go to the civilian world from federal law enforcement to civilian, but it was probably due to circumstances, right?
Okay, so this gives me a good starting point, and then this kind of so when you left the Air Force, immediately, what's the first obstacle you faced? What is the first thing that comes to mind when you think about, I'm getting out of the Air Force, I'm going into federal law enforcement?
Dealing with kids.
Okay.
Seriously. Like I give it to the men and women that are in that field 100%. That's a tough job to do. But when you've got a lot of people that weren't in the military, that came right out of college, and they get right into a federal law enforcement position, and and I would say this: the I was in the U.S. Border Patrol. The U.S. Border
Okay.
Patrol is very military regimented. So, and they're one of the hardest academies to get through because they wean their people out in the academy. Most of the other federal law enforcement agencies wean their people out in the hiring process. So it's
Right, like the
harder to
selection
get in
process.
through the
Yeah.
hiring process. The Border Patrol, it's at the academy. Yes, it's a rigorous process to get hired on, but if you got all your T's crossed and your I's dotted, you're going to be fine and you can get in. So there's a lot of physical training, a lot of PT, a lot of studying on 3 different levels of law: immigration law, nationality law, Fourth Amendment law. You're learning how to be in law enforcement, right? And it's a different mission. You're law enforcement coupled with immigration. But when you got folks that only have college or don't even they have some college and they were truck drivers or whatever, I mean, it was tough for me because there's
I
not a
definitely.
enforcement of discipline that the military regulations put on their people. It was all on the section leader, and I was the section leader, to make sure that everything's in up to par. And I gotta say, like, that was the toughest part for me.
I can definitely see where you're coming from on this one, because I chose to go what society tells you to do when you transition out, right? Like go to college, get a degree, get a 9 to 5, whatever. So I can remember being in flight school, and that was interesting because a lot of the kids in Washington State that were in my cohort for when I started private pilot or whatever on that journey to that degree, they were 17, 18, 19 because they do a running start program for the high schools there where
Interesting.
basically the kids can graduate with a high school diploma and an associate's degree, and it costs them far less. I think it's a phenomenal program, right? Like if that's the direction
Yeah.
you want to go, whatever. So amongst other things that were going on there, you still have some gen ed classes you have to do, and then you have to show up to fly, and you have your ground school time, and then a lot of us would just hang out in the ops room because that's where you learn a lot, is just studying with other people, different scenarios in flying or whatever. And one day I was waiting to go to go on my flight, waiting for my instructor to show up. I think we had like a weather delay or something. So I was just sitting on my laptop in the ops room doing some other gen ed homework that needed to be done. And one of these other students from my cohort was in the same math class or something. And she came to me and she's like, "How are you done with all of this week's work?" I'm like, because I know this is what has to be done. She unlocked it on the website so that I could do it. And so I value my time more than I value the pain of doing these homework assignments.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to do these. I think my schedule, like I would do all gen ed homework or any homework that I had access to on Mondays and Tuesdays. And then I would have the entire rest of the week to do whatever I wanted. And
Yes.
so it kind of made me come to this realization, like college isn't designed for people without life experience. And I think that's kind of what you're talking about was a challenge for you when you went to Border Patrol is, there's this element of being in the military at 17, 18, 19, 20 years old versus going to college and partying for 4 years and then entering a professional
Yep.
workforce or something as regimented as Border Patrol. Am I right in saying that's kind of where you were going with that?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those things where you can tell who was prior law enforcement and you can tell who was prior military because they just had their shit together. And I'm sorry, it's just I hate to put it like that, and I don't want to sound like this miser, this grumpy old guy talking about, but I feel like it was the hardest challenge for me. It was being able to relate to that civilian side of the sector and coming out. And I was still active duty military when I went to the Border Patrol Academy. I was on terminal leave. They could have called me back. So I almost went
Yeah.
back. That's because I was like, I hope I didn't make a mistake here. So
Right.
it
Right.
was a tough transition still. And it's still a regimented workforce. So it was, imagine going from something that's like that to nothing.
Right.
That would be hard.
And, and so having said that, right? So you're still on active duty terminal leave. I've seen a lot of, people from the Army, they do that. They set up these federal jobs, they screen with the FBI, they get picked up in the hiring process. They're on terminal leave, they start working. So there's no actual transition period between when they got out and when they started another career that is eerily similar to the one they just left, right? Like you're leaving this one for a reason and you're starting another one that's almost exactly the same. You just stay home and don't go overseas, right?
Yep.
And so other than the kids part, there probably wasn't a whole lot that you had to adjust to in the transition from the Air Force to the Border Patrol, right? Because it's still a
Right.
very military style. It's very. I'm sure there's a rank structure. I'm not going to claim to know what it is. I'm sure everything is done kind of like militarily, right?
Yeah.
There's probably operations orders. There's probably missions, if you were, or arrests or whatever, planned things, right?
Yep.
So let's fast forward to just a little bit of what you did with the Border Patrol. How was that for you? And if that's when you started to notice that maybe being an entrepreneur was for you, or if not, we'll talk about that in the later on in the show.
Yeah. Yeah. I For me, it ended up. when you're security forces, it's an outdoor job. I was very much into the outdoors. So I wanted something where I could be outdoors. And the Border Patrol, you're hiking in mountains, you're in desolate terrain. It's you and maybe one other person out there working these groups of, anywhere from just one to a few to, upwards to 80 or 100. It's crazy. It's very surreal job, but it's all rules of engagement. My last year in the military as a use of force and weapons instructor, it's all use of force. And it was a very easy transition for me. And I actually came in as a GS9 because of my law enforcement background. And that put me ahead of my classmates and everything as far as pay grade and things like that.
And probably rightfully so. I mean, you have the experience, the life experience translates, right? You're probably expected to be somewhat of a leader to these younger people, right? Because you know how this sort of works, right?
Yeah.
Like you're learning a new organization, but you understand the basic structure.
Yeah. And well, the law enforcement side of things is a big deal too, because I had people that were in my class that were in the military, but they weren't law enforcement and they didn't have a college degree and they went in as a GS5. So
Right.
it is based on the experience. What did you do? I went to court on some of my cases. Those were all things that they were looking for that. But when you look at how getting into the real world and how it works, I think that term cocky came out pretty quickly on me because I was, again, very like I was confident, and I was a use of force and weapons instructor. I knew the use of force. I knew what needed to be required to be in federal law enforcement. I just was in law enforcement for the last 10 years. And then you're talking about tactics and working with an M4, two guns, small groups, like working in 2 to 3 man, little groups, and being able to move through terrain and using night vision and sneaking in on people to different like that. Yeah, dude, I've done that. Like that's not hard. That sounds fun, actually. Like,
Right. Yeah.
and that's what it was. And I tell you, I got to say the story, because I had this level of confidence. I was approached a couple times by supervisors. Hey, Towndrow, I heard you're kind of cocky. Towndrow, I heard you're kind of cocky. And it all started with one guy who he'd been in the Border Patrol for 3 years. He just picked up an FTO, field training officer position. And look, you got to play the game, right? But I was kind of over playing the game. Like I went in, I played the game a little bit, and this guy came into the we were doing some computer work. There's like 7 months of post academy after you made it through 5 months of academy, and then you have another 5 months after that goes into your field training and your journeyman phases. So they have a very rigorous training process to make sure their people are ready for that position. This guy comes in. I knew he was a banker beforehand. He only has 3 years of this service, and he comes in and he's kind of, being a dick. I was just like, he's like, hey, does this computer work? And I was like, oh, I'm not sure. He's like, well, get up and look.
Oh no.
I just look at him.
Just go
I just look at him, and then I just start doing my work. And that's where that whole stemmed from, because I didn't check, because I was like, yeah, go fuck yourself, dude. I don't care about that. And I think it started going around that I had this chip on my shoulder. So I was getting a little heated about it. I wasn't happy about it, right? So I was talking to my wife, and I told her, I was like, I don't give a shit who it is. The next person that says this, I'm going to say this. So probably like a week later, Tango 5. All right. So this is Tango 1 is number 1. All right. I'm at the time, I'm Tango 428. Oof. So Tango 5 comes up. Hey, Towndrow, Heard you're kind of cocky. I just look at him straight in the eyes, and I'm just like, you know what, sir? That seems to be the topic of discussion lately. But last time I checked, that was a prerequisite to get in the Border Patrol. And I just stared him down. And he just looks at me, he smiles, and he's like, I like cocky. I'm going to release you on your own today. I'm like, Roger that.
Nice, man. I
And then
love
I
it.
went out and got a 300-pound vehicle stop, 300-pound load seizure on a vehicle stop
Okay. The same day.
the next day.
The next.
Yeah.
Yeah, confidence, right?
Right.
Because walk the walk, talk the talk.
Yeah.
You
I'll
know,
let my, and I was saying, I'll let my performance speak for me. I'm done talking.
so great.
And I think the
Man.
military gives
So
that to you.
it definitely, yeah, it definitely does, and that can also be, like you said earlier in the conversation, that it's, you know, it's also something that holds you back, right?
I
It
can.
becomes a dangerous tool, and
Yeah.
you know, while it's a high leverage skill, there is a fine line between what you were talking about, confidence and cocky,
Yeah.
right? And I think they're, to your point, easily mistaken, right? By not only outward but inward as well. You end up confusing yourself, and that's a dangerous spot to be in. And
It's a
so,
great point. Yep.
um, you know, so moving through the Border Patrol, I assume your career got kind of better after that, right? Like you're telling Tango 5 exactly how you feel, and then going and making a good bust or whatever. So um, what what ultimately led to the transition from the Border Patrol to doing your own thing?
Yeah.
That's what I want to get to, because I really want you to speak on the dark days of transition when you're
Yeah.
losing, you know, that sense of purpose and all of that, and then your path back to it.
Well, I got to tell you, man, it wasn't easy. I did almost 9 years in the Border Patrol. I went into that field with what I called fatigue. I was, burned out, fatigued, and I was bringing home shit. And I have to say, like, going from the military and Air Force into the Border Patrol was like stepping out of the frying pan and into the fire. Like, you are very Border Patrol is a very tough job, and I hats off to those folks that can do 20 years in any service like that, because it's dangerous as shit, man. I'm sorry. You're just not gonna you see stuff in that field that no other regular law enforcement across this nation. Like, I have buddies that are cops, and we share stories, and they're like, man, fuck that. And I'm over here listening to them. I'm like, man, fuck that. And it's just a weird way to look at these things. But my career progressed. I brought this stuff over, and I was a very hands-on guy. I always got it, like, the 80-20 rule, right? 20% of the agents do 80% of the work. I was always out of my truck. I was always out there trying to do my job, whether it was, seizing weapons, drugs, making arrests, working on different teams, small task force. I've worked a plainclothes unit for a while. I was a field training officer. So I was always wanting to get my hands into it, right? I wanted to be this guy. So it just started really catching up to me. And I was a healthy guy. I followed nutrition and I worked out, and I thought I was healthy, and maybe physically I was, but not mentally.
Right
Yep.
here. Yep.
And I wasn't,
And that's
dude, it was hard, man. It was hard. So what did I start doing? I started coping. And I wasn't going to go and talk to anybody that I had these struggles, because when you do that and you're in law enforcement, they put you on the rod squad, they relieve you of duty, and they take your gun away, and it's now you're being flagged and kind of labeled as this guy. What's wrong with you? And now they're going to be giving you psych evals. You could possibly lose your job, right? So I started coping in my own way. And
That's how it was in the military, also in the infantry, right? When I was a young private coming up, you know, I'll remember the first time being blown up, and it's like, man, my head hurts. Like, I don't feel good, and it's just like, take Tylenol, take a knee, face out, Charlie Mike. Don't go get help, because it'll ruin your career. It'll end.
yeah,
It's over. you'll get labeled, it'll go in your file, and you're not doing anything you want to do in your career anymore.
Yeah.
And I hate that so much, knowing what I know now.
Yeah. It I do too. It's one of those regrets. Had I maybe approached this in a way that, and now right? Like in hindsight,
Right.
I know that there was a path I could have taken that would have still benefit me and I still would have been able to keep my job. But I ultimately had to resign from my position due to substance abuse. And talk about a hit. Talk about a hit, man. Like I always wanted to be in federal law enforcement. It was kind of, and I wouldn't say like any specific, but just in federal law enforcement. And so I had that opportunity and I lost it. And it was due to these other issues that were going on that I wasn't taking care of. And that was a dark time. That was a dark time. I went from jumping out of helicopters and riding ATVs and chasing drug runners to being a stay-at-home dad. Talk about being
Drinking.
a caged tiger.
Yep.
And I had little ones at the time. What am I passing on to them? So those are very, very difficult things for me to go through. Um, and that actually,
What was your
no, go ahead.
what was your main coping mechanism? What was it? Alcohol?
It was weed.
Really?
Yep. I was not a drinker.
That's interesting to me. So, because you know, I have a relationship with cannabis. I love cannabis.
Yeah.
It's definitely helped me improve my life when I started using it with intention versus trying to escape. But for me, it was drinking, and I don't often hear people that have a problem with cannabis. So I'm really
Well,
shocked, I guess.
when you mix that with being in federal law enforcement, clearly
Right.
worlds don't
Yeah.
mix.
Yeah,
So
obviously, which sometimes I think's a little silly, but that's not what we're here to talk
I
about.
agree.
So,
I agree. And I will say too though, like I'm not condoning it. And I had a lot of people support me because I ended up getting hit with a random, and that's what kind of started all this.
that's yep.
And that's even now it's cringy for me to hear me say that out loud. And I feel like I let a lot of people down, you know. Um, but I actually had a lot of support too from people that are still in. And I had, upwards like almost 40 people write letter of recommendations for me based off of who I am, all this stuff. But dude, once it happens, once it's there, there's no, it's like very much like the military, you're gone, so I had to
Yeah,
resign.
zero tolerance.
Yeah. And it was either
Right.
going to, I get fired or I resign. And so,
So, so that's a perfect segue into the impact that you having to resign. So, did that send you even further down the rabbit hole, or did it? Was that your wake up call, and then in that I'm sure you had that conversation where you had to have that you just had with me with yourself, right? Because that's the only way to get out of that. But what sparked? What was the outcome of having to resign? Did it send you further,
oh
or
yeah,
did it pull you out?
no, I doubled down, dog. I was like, I doubled down, man. I'm like, well, I already did it, so here we go. I turned into this stoner, like, and it really allowed me to make it through the day. It allowed me to just not kind of, and it also allowed me to reflect deeply. Like, look, pros and cons. There was pros and cons for
Mhm.
me. Like, it helped me to an extent, and I'm grateful that I had it at the time. And I went and got a medicinal card and everything. But then I recognized that I had other dreams, that there was other things that I wanted to do and that it was holding me back.
And so, what did that look like for you? Like, what was the catalyst to that realization? Because For example, for me, I say, I had help. I had a lot of help. Ayahuasca is a cheat code. It really is a cheat code in that it kind of shows you or brings you to that realization, and then it's up to you afterwards to do the work.
Yeah.
Um, you know, and so I'm always interested. I don't think you've had a psychedelic experience like what I experienced with the ayahuasca.
No.
And if I'm wrong, please share with me,
No.
because it's interesting to me. But it fascinates me as I'm going through this psychedelic integration and addiction recovery coaching certification course, um, to see all these mechanisms, and then hear these stories of people who didn't have the psychedelic experience. What brought you to that realization? I assume at this point you've got kids, right? So you said you're a stay-at-home dad, and did you look at your kids and be like, I have to be better for them, or what was that?
Yeah, honestly, like, definitely the family has something to do with it, right? But I also recognized how I was a better person while on it during that time, because otherwise it was rage and guilt and shame and all those feelings leading my life. And so the medicinal allowed me to work through that process easier and on a lighter note, if that makes sense. Now, what got me
Totally,
out of
because
it?
that's my relationship with cannabis now, is I use it to deeply reflect on how I'm feeling and why I'm thinking the things that I do, and then do they serve me, yes or no, and then down that whole rabbit hole. That's how I use cannabis now. Before, it was, let's just get high because I don't want to feel anything,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah. And for me, I recognize, so I'm using this all the way through different certifications and school, and I started grad school in January 22. I actually graduate a couple weeks finally.
Congratulations.
Thanks, man. I'm excited. And it was in that. So my bachelor's degree is in adventure education. And that's the whole reason I went towards this path. Is I Googled outdoor jobs when I was in this dark spot, right? I was like, I need to do something. I can't just be a stay at home. I'm an action guy, right? So it was this, and I can't say it was like one thing that really set me to like get away from that. It was, except for the fact that I want to create a business, and there's going to be a lot of work that goes into this, and I need my discipline and that structure that the military brought me to come out, and I won't be able to do that while using medicinal. So that was a big part of it for sure. And that was years down the road, by the way.
So essentially, it's like you yearned to do something outside, and outside happens to be your passion. So you're like, how can I do outside every single day of my life and feel good about myself, right? Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Yeah, exactly. Like the outdoors, that was outdoors and exploration were the things that brought me back to my center, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Yeah, it totally makes sense. So in that, was part of the degree teaching you about how you can turn this into a business, or did you just decide you wanted to turn this into a business? I'll use an example. The Being True to You course I'm going through, it's very much to teach you how to be a psychedelic integration coach. And then at the end of the program, you get an opportunity to be, on their directory, and they'll help you establish your coaching business and all of that. So was that your degree, or was it more traditional, just learn these things because we said so and go work for somebody else?
Yeah. So honestly, my degree, it's at Prescott College, and Prescott College is known for their experiential learning by doing.
Ah, I went to a similar school in Washington State called the Evergreen State
Yep.
University. I call it a choose your own adventure degree.
Yeah, it's exactly what it is. And so how this whole idea stemmed up for me. Like I knew I wanted to run my own outdoor program, whatever that meant. So I got this when I went to Prescott College to finish my bachelor's, I was actually finishing my degree in exercise sciences. And through APUS, American Public University, or AMU, American Military University.
Oh yeah.
So, and I think a lot of people use that.
I still get emails from them today.
Yeah, dude,
Like,
I
hey, I
like
have a
them.
degree and I want
They
to.
were a good online school.
Honestly, I can't say anything one way or another about them because as an infantryman, I was like, oh, I got the opportunity to go to college. I signed up for 2 classes. Week 1, they're like, oh, you're going to NTC for 6 weeks. You got to drop these courses. It was like the commander just signed off on
Yeah.
these. So as an infantryman, I didn't have a lot of time to go to college or, facilitate college. But so I can't speak one way or another on AMU.
No, I know a lot of people that went there. I think it's just they've done it's actually founded by a retired Marine, and it's really kind of geared towards helping military. So APUS is this APU is American Public University, AMU is American Military University, and then combined is APUS. But anyways, my point is the whole outdoor search and getting into being an adventure guide at a local business here, where I was taking people hiking, mountain biking, road biking, mountain climbing, high ropes course, climbing wall, all these different things. And I was like, I want to get into this field. Well, I have 38 credits left. Let me transfer over to Prescott College. They have an venture education degree program. I finished that in 7 months. I knocked out 38 credits in 7 months. And oh yeah, I was that let me know right there. All right, I'm motivated. I'm ready. I want to do just like you were saying. You knocked all this stuff out in the first part of the week so you can chill the rest of the time. I was like, I want to hammer this out so I can get to the next level because I want to establish my next chapter in my life.
Definitely.
So after that, I graduated. I went to Knowles, National Outdoor Leadership School, kind of like Outward Bound. And I went on a month-long trip in Wyoming, the Wind River Range, and got certified as an outdoor educator with them. And that was an eye-opening experience because I was using medicinal at the time, but you can't take it to a school like that. And so I had to clean out for that, which was, for me, it wasn't hard, but it wasn't easy either because you hit a certain point. And again, the group dynamics. By day 5 to 8, the true you is coming out. And if you're dealing with some shit and you've got other things going on, it's really hard to hold those things back, to not allow hunger and fatigue and constantly moving and group dynamics. And, you're burning calories to go to the bathroom, like I lost 15 pounds in like 24 days, dude. And so the true you comes out, right? And I recognized there, I was like, I wasn't happy. I am in my zone. I am comfortable in these mountains. I love it. I'm not scared. I'm not intimidated by any of it. But I was just realizing I wasn't happy. Why is that? What is going on? What am I doing in my life that's making it so I'm not happy? I'm like, this is like one of the best experiences I could be on in my life. And it was a fantastic experience. But that's when I knew I needed to do something more. And I needed to even kind of pursue different routes towards therapy. And one of the things I ended up getting an A in that course. But one of the things I got dinged on hard was coaching. Was you probably could do better at coaching. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. I would think I was a good coach. But then I took that and I say I took it to heart, like, okay, I'm going to look at coaching. I'm going to see what I need to do to improve. in that area to make myself a better leader, an outdoor leader. And so when I started doing all this research on coaching, I was like, oh, dude, yeah, I'm horrible at coaching. Like, oh, yeah, wait a minute. Like, that ain't me at all. Like, I don't do that. I actually do it this way. And so it really actually exposed me and allowed me to like reflect and take it as a learning experience, become more self-aware, using these leadership skills that we teach and preach to be like, yeah, okay. And so I'm one of these guys like, oh, well, I'll prove you wrong type. So I was trying to prove myself wrong. And so when I was taking folks, I know this is I'm really drawing this question out here, but it's not,
No, it's
it's
great. This is awesome. This is important because we're going to get somewhere with this, and it's going to go to the next thing. This is exactly how it should be.
cool. So I get done with this course, right? I'm reflecting. I'm living this like legitimate high on life. I'm feeling good afterwards. And then I take these steps to go and get the help that I needed. And I went through the VA, went through therapy, went through all these different things. And I was able to recognize like, oh shit, I've been holding on to some stuff for a long time. And I didn't know the whole thing when you're getting into the, out of the military and that's your job. And then you go into the border patrol and that's your job. I was like, of course I feel paranoid. Of course I have this. Of course I have that. That's part of the job, like that's what I did, but I was still having these issues and bringing it with me. So I was able to work through that and seek the right help. And then and mind you, all that's kind of going on at the same time when I started at grad school back in January 2022. And so as I'm doing that, I'm getting the help. I'm still in Venture Guide. I'm still taking people out doing these awesome things. And while I'm on the trail with these folks, so I'm bringing two worlds together here. That's what I'm trying to paint for you here.
Yeah.
I'm on the trail with folks. I was taking, professional grade C-suite people that own their own businesses, multimillionaires, actors, actresses, directors, writers, people, professional athletes. I was taking these types of folks out on these types of adventures. And what I recognized real quick was these folks are opening up to me on the trail. Like, I'm a complete stranger. I'm just a guide doing what I do, doing what I love. And they are opening up to me about real issues. And I make fucking minimum wage. Like get out of here, dude. Like, what is going on? So that's when I was like, you know what? We could do this better. There could be something done while you're actually out there on the trail on how that whole process of healing, reflection, self-awareness, powerful questioning, all these things come into play when you're on the trail. So the place I worked for, they're kind of, when I did work for them, they were the, defining standard, if you will, on that type of wellness resort retreat for folks. They were founded back in the 70s. Started off as a fat farm and then turned into this whole wellness thing, right? But their primary focus was on the bottom line, making money. And it got to the point to be like there was a very toxic work environment, and it made me like kind of challenge some of these things. And like, at what extent you're making money, at what extent of your own people's health and wellness? Like we're supposed to be preaching and being a part of this whole health and wellness kind of thing, but you don't give a shit. And there was all these different improvements. It's just a corporate type of thing, that was occurring. So I ended up taking these ideas of being on the trail, facilitating this growth, making it an outdoor experience, but a transformative experience. But I'm taking the outdoor education and adventure education realm into it. My master's degree is in outdoor education leadership. So my very first paper I write is like 30 pages. It was only supposed to be 12. I was like, hell no, I'm fucking going crazy here. And I combined these two worlds, man. And my professor loved it. And that was my very first class, right? They're like, you need to build on this. And so from that point on, I took every single course and the final of every single one of those courses and built a small piece of that pie of how this business would work as I went through this progression for the last 2 years. So,
Well, that's
yeah,
awesome.
man.
That's really cool. That's definitely an interesting way to come up with how to build a business. So my next question is going to be, I guess, yeah, I was going to move into like, I think it's important because I hear all the time, like, well, I'm afraid, right? I'm afraid to start my own thing
Yeah.
or whatever. And so I assume that writing that 30-page paper, the professor loving it, telling you to build on it, kind of shaped how you were going to build the business. So maybe that helped eliminate some of that fear for you.
You know what? I don't think so. I think I think it was the first step that needed to be take to eliminate that fear. The first of many steps.
Of course, yeah, because it's definitely, and I wasn't suggesting that it eliminated all the
Yeah.
fear because it's scary. I mean, I just,
Still is.
I just announced the release of this podcast for Wednesday, May 1st, and I'm still like in that spot where like I'm afraid, I'm nervous, I'm scared, I'm anxious, I doubt myself, right? But like also I know all the good feelings that come with it too. So it definitely is a process. So that was the beginning of you getting over that fear,
Yeah.
and that's really awesome, man. Because through the ayahuasca retreat, I've been on a Operation Red Wings Foundation retreat. So much of what they preach, and it's not preaching. I don't want to use that word because it's counseling. It's growth, but they talk about how important the outdoors are to your mental health. And taking that forward in my own life with my own routines now, I know that when I get out first thing in the morning and the sun is rising at like 6:37 here in Florida when I'm going out for the walk, and then by the time I'm back, it's way up. I know what that's doing for me because I can feel it. I can physically feel it, and mentally I'm clear. And so I assume that's a lot of what you were learning and writing about, and then combining the outdoors with that and doing research. Can you speak to some of the stuff you learned about what the outdoors does for our mental health and all of that? And then we'll progress into you building the actual business and where it's at now.
Yeah, man. There's actually a great amount of research into nature and the outdoors, and oddly enough, I mean, we definitely have a lot of literature here in the United States, but some of the best scientific data that we have on the topic really comes from Japan and their concept of Shinrin. Oh, I'm gonna mess it up. Shinrin Yoku, something like that. I got to look it up now. It's gonna bother me. But anyways, the and that means forest bathing. And they started all this whole concept. It's actually culturally ingrained now, and they have data going all the way back to the 80s on taking people outdoors and just sitting them there for 15 minutes. All right, they assess their vitals before and they assess their vitals after. And then they went through all of this process, and they have all this amount of data that shows how there's a reduction of stress and anxiety and depression, and even the vital signs, your blood pressure and heart rate decrease with, even if we're talking like if you're sitting there, right? If now, mind you, if you're exercising or hiking up a mountain, like a little different, right? Your heart rate's going to be up here, but they've provided a ton of data that really supports this. And so the United States, when you're getting into adventure therapy side of things, and that was really kind of a primary focus for me. was kind of this veteran first responder world, and then the amount of data coming in that supports this level of treatment for those communities. And so I couldn't get into adventure therapy because I'd need to get a counseling degree, but I could still take those and study all that stuff. And they have a new concept now through the Association of Experiential Education, who is the defining standard for adventure therapy. They're getting into a new program called Therapeutic Adventures. And I have some mentors that are part of all this group. A couple of my professors are in that group, and then even a guy I went and did a internship with the Association of Experiential Education, Aaron Leonard. He's actually passed some really good litigation out of the state of New York. And I don't want to say passed, but he introduced and then got the litigation and laws to be passed to support veterans in those types of kind of therapeutic adventures. And the data that supports even just traditional based therapy of something that a veteran would go through, and we all know that the VA has now moved to something more of a digital side of things. Most people don't even show up to that. Most veterans will not show up to that type of therapy. And then when you even talk about therapy, well, what age group are they in? Younger generations are probably going to be a little more open to it. Older generations, starting from us and on, and there's huge stigmas that are in place. Personal stigmas, stigmas from other people, like what is this person going to be thinking about that? Or even just the stigmas of losing those jobs that we were talking about earlier.
Well, I think there's one other hidden one behind it, and it's not talked about enough. Is it's relatability, right? You can't talk to someone if you don't feel
Exactly.
like they can relate to you, and if all they're going to do is throw DSM-5 language at you and ask questions that are upsetting instead of really letting you control how you
Yep.
do that cathartic exercise. And that's the reason I pursued psychedelic medicine, to help me over going to the VA, because I just didn't want to be drugged zombie,
Exactly.
or I didn't have the time or whatever to go to their digital yoga class and their tai chi on the on the computer. And I'm like, this is silly. Like I think, and I think we're going to talk about this, but I think I was needing community and like connection to others who are going through what I'm going through,
Yeah.
and not so I think that's another big factor.
Yeah. I agree with you. And it's one of the things I'm personally building on with my business, as I progress down this kind of entrepreneur world. But it's a major factor, like the small connections that are made because you're able to relate to those group of like-minded people that have been through this, and that really established this concept called post-traumatic growth. And honestly, the people that coined that now have founded an organization called Boulder Crest, and
Okay.
they have a whole book on this called Struggle Well. It's amazing. It's they're probably some of the key people when you're talking about data that supports what immersed groups. None of their path guides are therapists. None of them have this ACC, CPC, none of these like kind of 3-letter, titles after their name. They're just peers. Like it's peer support, and they've seen profound growth and from those types of organizations, types of groups. And so when you're getting into the adventure therapy side of things, that's the whole concept. I took a course on experiential counseling, and it's how are these types of programs supposed to be established? What needs to be in place? What makes it counseling versus, just some type of adventure thing? And I recognized quickly that, well, I don't want to be a counselor, but I still want to do this coaching thing, right? And this was halfway through my degree program. But the immersed connection connection with community, connection with nature. Those are
Yeah,
huge, huge components of what really are making change in these types of programs, right? And
yeah.
yeah, yeah, I
Well,
can,
and it's what because it was taught to me at two of the retreats that I got the humbly blessed to go to, and it's what resonated with me when your content was shown to me on LinkedIn, which led to the connection, and then finding trying to figure out how to be a coach or whatever, and having that meeting, and then asking you to come on and talk about this now, like you know it's cool that the outdoors can actually bring people together, and it's sad that as a society, I mean, people just don't go outside anymore.
nope, they don't. I mean, it was estimated, man, I'm probably get the number wrong here, but I think it was only like 6 million people will get out on a trail once a year.
That's crazy
That's
because I'm
that's
always
nuts,
in the
man.
yard doing something,
Yeah.
or walk every day, go to the beach.
Yeah.
I love being outside. What do you think that's this might be a really good question. Do you think that's due to the advent of you know portable electronics in our pockets? Because I know when you and I grew up, like I was locked out of the house till the street light came on.
Yeah.
Well, not the street light. We called it the from dusk till dawn light,
Yeah.
right? And so I'm out, playing in ditches, grabbing crawfish with my bare hands,
Yeah.
whatever, coming back covered in mud, mom having to spray me and my brother off with the hose because we're covered head to toe in rock hard mud
Yep.
now. you know do you think we're getting away from that because of these, or like what do you think it is?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of a couple things, but I believe technology is feeding into it, right? Like, um, they even have theories in eco psychology called techno addiction theory, and these we're addicted to these electronic devices. I actually have to ground my kids from electronic devices every now and then, and they turn into a regular human being afterwards within days, and we're going. So it's real. I think it's a contributing factor, but I also think that, look, we have access to shelter, we have access to water, and we have access to food on a fairly readily easy basis, right? And not everyone is fortunate to have that, but when you look at the grand scale of things, we tend to have it's easier access to these. And so I think that because of that, I mean, you come down here to Tucson, Arizona, we're surrounded by wilderness and mountain ranges. And I mean, I see coyotes and bobcats in my backyard. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's it's awesome to be affiliated with that. But I know people that have grown up here and lived here their whole lives who have never even been on a trail. I'm like, what? Like, dude, we're surrounded
I
by
just don't even
trails, man. Like,
think,
how are you
yeah,
know?
that I feel like if you live in Arizona, that's what you do. If you live in Utah, that's
Yeah,
what you do,
right.
right? Like, no, that's insane, man. I had a sneaking suspicion that it was largely due to technology, and
Yeah,
even I I'm just as guilty of that. I enjoy listening to audiobooks when I do my morning walks, but this morning my headphones were dead, and I'm not going to listen in one ear, so I just took off on the walk with no headphones. I was actually amazed at how much more I accomplished this morning
yeah,
personally for myself. I'm not saying I don't accomplish things every other morning working my stuff out in my head, but there was definitely something to hearing the birds chirping, and unfortunately the traffic riding by me because everybody's going to work while I should be going to work, but I'm actually doing my work right now, you know what I
yeah,
mean, by choice. So it really was kind of eye opening, and I had read all of that stuff. I had been told that before as well, and I was just kind of like, no, I enjoy using this time to listen to personal growth books or business books, something that moves the needle, and then I can read my fiction at night, and whatever. But man, I'm gonna have to start incorporating more of those, because just hearing even the dog's feet and their nails hitting the sidewalk
Exactly.
was there was something to all of that. And yeah, man, it's really cool.
I do not wear headphones when if I go on like a regular walk when it's like a sidewalk walk with my dog or something. Okay, I might sometimes have one, but if I'm hitting the dirt, nope. I want all of it. I want all my
Yeah.
senses to be in tune with it. And plus we've got mountain lions and hazards here. I want to be able to hear something coming up too. So
Yeah, I'm not getting that in Palm Bay, Florida. Walking to the park or walking to the
yeah.
the far intersection.
Yeah.
So, but um, what were early indicators that entrepreneurship and building this business was the right move for you? Like, what ultimately kind of pushed you over the edge? Was it that professor telling you to build on it? Was it all of the research you were doing and figuring out, seeing it all come together, and you were just like, okay, I can definitely make money at this? And I don't mean make money at this from the sense that that's what you're concerned with, because right, like clearly your motivation is helping people
Yeah.
and being a coach and opening their eyes to better wellness, right? And I understand that that's your why, and if you focus on that, the money comes in the long run,
Yeah.
right? So what was that kind of inspired just building the business?
Yeah, so kind of stemming back to how I said I wanted to run an outdoor program. I actually applied to take over that department, and that's when I recognized there was a lot of games being played, and I was at that time I was diving into some of that, Simon Sinek, your why, some of this techno addiction theories, all this stuff was really kind of around that time. And I would say I was very theoretical maybe in my approach, but for me, it's only theoretical because you didn't apply it. Right. So, I ended up leaving that position because of some of the games, and I applied. I'm like, okay, it shouldn't be hard to get a job. And I've never done this before. Like, I mean, mind you, the transition from border patrol, I guess I kind of did. But any other time I've left a position like that, I've always set it up to where I'm falling into something. And this, I applied at like probably 15 different jobs, didn't even get an interview. And I'm like, what in the hell is going on here, dude? Like, this is crazy. I've got a background here. I am hireable, and I wasn't even getting an interview. So I went to this dark mode again. And I was still working on my degree, still doing all these courses, still trying to build this idea of what I wanted to do, combine these worlds of outdoor education and coaching, right? But I was like never really like dove into it like a hard yes until summer last year. And I ended up um kind of playing a victim on myself, just kind of being a victim, like poor me, poor me. And I ended up this quote came to me. I don't even know where it came from, man, but it was from the Shawshank Redemption, and it was get busy living or get busy dying. And I'm over here just waiting on somebody to find my value. Man, screw this. I'm doing this business. I'm not waiting anymore. I'm literally in a perfect transition and a perfect opportunity to just do it. Fuck it. Here we go. So I did it.
That's
I
great.
started diving in,
That's
man.
so this is so good, because that's so much of what starting a business is. It's just like, I'm gonna do this thing. I have no idea how to do this thing,
Yeah.
but I'm gonna do
Yeah.
it, right? And so how did you take that first action? Like, because I know, I didn't know where to start. You didn't know where to start. That's the most common question I get when people do discovery calls with me is, hey Adam, how I want to be an entrepreneur, but I don't know how to start. And it obviously it's not one size fits all, but
Yeah.
what was it for you? You just took one little action that compounded into another little action, or did the professor and building on your papers and all that through your master's program, did that help inform how you were going to start?
I think it was a little bit of both of those. Yeah, just making the decision in my head. Yes, I'm doing that. That was by far one of the biggest things I could have done for myself. Like it gave me back that purpose. Even though I wasn't making money or anything like that, it gave me something to work towards, not just something to
And
work on.
that is, it's such a powerful thing to hear someone else say what I've been telling everyone. That's why I believe entrepreneurship is the path to purpose, because even if you're not making money, you're doing something that you decided to do. Nobody else decided to do
Yeah,
this. You did this,
exactly.
right? And that's the game changer, I think. And that's the kind of the flip of the light switch, or the key that unlocks all the doors for you,
Yeah.
right? Is that you realize it's up to you, and you
Yeah.
decided this for you.
Yeah. And kind of going back to some of that school stuff, I was in a position where I could, all right, well, I'm going to tailor all my electives to MBA courses, marketing, leadership, the ESG analytics, like going down this, how to act, what I need to actually have in place for this type of program to meet industry standards. And so I was like, Psh, I'm doing it. So I was able to, so it helped me, but I needed to make that decision for myself. And then I think a great starting point too was LinkedIn. Like I
Yeah,
decided
super.
like I'm just going to start posting. I've been taking a break over the last couple days, and that's literally so I can focus on my capstone and get everything I need to for this week. So I haven't really posted anything this week. Um
I was wondering where your stuff was. I hadn't seen much of you.
yeah,
It's
Monday, Tuesday,
I always try to
and
make.
then I'm sick too. Everyone in the house is sick, including my dog. So it's like this is
Oh,
a perfect pause opportunity. And I'm just going to take the week
yeah.
off. I'm not going to sit there and stress about it. But making the decision to post on LinkedIn, open up a little bit about my own struggles, right? Like I had to kind of like, look, if you're going to build a business and personally brand yourself to bring people, because, look, like branding and marketing, that is I'm sorry, like I'm not a corporation. I'm a small business. I'm personally branding myself. And if someone doesn't like me, then why would they even sign up for my services? So you have to personally brand yourself. That's like the new up and coming kind of marketing strategy, honestly.
I think so too, because that's what I started. November of last year, a challenge to post on LinkedIn. I didn't even know what to post about, and I saw personal branding was starting to take off, right?
Yep,
So, and then here I am building the strategic veteran, right? And
exactly.
it's I think what I resonate with what you're saying, because my name is on this, and I have this vision for this, and this community means so much to me, right? Like, I want to be sure that you all know what you're getting out of me when you come here, and the only way to do that is to just be myself.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's the best. It's the best strategy, in my opinion.
It's it's
It
so
builds the
good, because
trust.
it well, and you're not trying to right, like, even in the military, right? Like, we're all trying to be something that we're not, right? Like we are that, but deep down inside, you want to be whoever you feel like being in that moment, right? And compounded over several years, it kind of becomes your identity, and then you lose the military, and right?
Yeah.
Like, now I don't have any of that
Yeah.
anymore, and you're stuck back at square one, where you have all these feelings and all this, but by now your internal monologue has changed, the narrative in your head is completely
Yeah.
different, and so you have to rediscover who you actually are
Yeah.
again. And now all I can do is just share that I've been in those positions. I understand what you're going through, and be authentic in that. I really want to just give you hope and show you that there's a better way.
Yeah. And that's exactly the same. kind of concept that is bringing me into what I'm doing. And I've coined the term, sorry, adventure wellness coaching. Google it right now. My stuff's that is what comes up. And
That's awesome,
it's
man.
honestly
That's
because
so
I've
good.
created the website on that, right? But almost every single post, I talk about something with adventure wellness, adventure wellness, adventure wellness. LinkedIn has given me the SEO that I needed for building that
Right.
content. Even if it's the same thing over and over, I bring that in. But the point is going back to what you were saying is, had I known of a program like this before I went through all of my other shit, I would probably be in a different place in my life. I probably would still be in law enforcement, maybe not the Border Patrol, maybe a different 3-letter agency, but there's potential there. And it's not like I'm living regrets or I'm looking on the past. I'm just want to help folks. First responders and being a part of those communities is a huge value of mine. I'm a volunteer member with our local search and rescue team. It's all volunteer, but I have to show up all the time for training. I have to show up for calls on a whim, if I can make it. It's because I share those strong values of making an impact on people's lives and on those communities. How can we allow first responders and veterans and military members to do their jobs, but not help them incorporate sustainable practices and healthy habits in their lives? We're doing real shit. There is real jobs, there's real things happening in those professions outside of anybody else. And it's not about money. It's about saving lives and making an impact on communities. I don't give a shit what anyone's take is on it. That's what it is. And if we're not helping our own people build these sustainable habits, no wonder we're having manning issues. No wonder we're constantly having burnout or people high rate suicide rates, or name pick your poison, because we're not giving these folks the tools they need. And for me, I don't like saying that like this, but I chose coaching specifically to help combat the stigmas against therapy, because when you go to somebody specifically in law enforcement and even fire department too, and you say therapy, whoa, all these red flags come up. But what if you are going through wellness coaching, right? And therapy is really designed to focus on the past and the who, right? Like what's happening right now and what in the past has led to that. But coaching, okay, what is going on right now and how can we improve the future? You have to take action with coaching. And that is a big step that I've recognized in my studies and personally with veterans going through therapy. You only get so much from talking to somebody before, okay, yeah, that's great. What can I actually do now to get me to this next spot? That's coaching.
That's such a good point, man. Because I'm also learning through my studies with the program I'm in is the difference between therapy and coaching is you're giving the power back to,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Yep.
so therapy doesn't do that. They just want. I really think therapists are just curious
I think it's
people
just
who like,
self-awareness, maybe some recognition.
right. So dude, it's so good. When you started Adventure Well, what is it's positivity, adventure, wellness, and coaching, right?
Adventure and wellness
LLC.
coaching. Yep.
Yeah. So, how'd you arrive at positivity? T.
Had to emphasize the T, Tony T, right? So
That's right.
the for me, the positive thinking, these positive affirmations, restructuring and reframing the things that I was saying to myself. And look, sometimes I still do. And I have to catch
Every
myself.
day.
Yeah, I have to catch myself and be like, no, no. So that was really the
The
idea
difference
behind
this
it.
time. Yeah, the difference this now for me is I notice I'm having those thoughts, and I notice that I take stock of a why I'm having that thought or talking to myself that way. B, when have I done that before? And C, what was the result of that to make a decision on whether or not it serves me or not? And then I just reframe the whole thing. Like, okay, that doesn't serve me. I'm going to let this go. Goodbye.
Yep.
Right. So it's okay to have moments of weakness and talk to yourself like shit from time to time.
It
It's going to
happens.
happen. Nobody's perfect. But it's when you do that repetitively and continue to do it and you
And you
never
start
take stock
believing
of
it.
it, you never examine. Yeah. Yeah, man. No, that's so good.
Yeah, it's that was really the idea where it came from, is the positive thinking. And then I was like, well, I'm going to play a word on this. So Coach T.
So let's talk about what you offer. Let's talk about how you designed your program, what people can expect if they choose to seek out your program, and kind of your thoughts behind how you structured it and why you structured it that way.
Yeah, so the framework is around 4 different kind of, optimal health. And when we're talking about uh, what really brings optimal health, right? So fitness, nutrition, environment, and attitude. And what's interesting is I created this framework, just through different things that I've learned and certifications I've taken. I am a certified professional coach, certified wellness coach, and a certified spiritual coach. And that's really to help.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Yeah. So really kind of diving into the laws of the universe, bringing in purpose, connection, just allowing reframing, right? Like this whole, the law of choice or the law of abundance, like, all these 20 plus, you know,
The
the
law of abundance is one of
right.
my
Yeah.
it's one of my favorites. I have an abundance of everything, and if you just think like that,
Yeah.
it starts to happen. It's really
It,
cool.
it, it
It's
yeah,
really cool.
it reframes, and you create your energy when you start reframing these things, right? So I really focus on those 4 pillars, and I offer kind of 2 different kind of services, like an in-person. Well, I'll start with, I do virtual coaching, just pretty like something like this where you can go through some virtual stuff. And when we're talking about getting accredited through ICF, International Coaching Federation, which is what I'm doing right now, um, I have to have recorded sessions. I have to send those in and take tests and stuff. And those are all fine, and we can focus on a lot of these different kind of what I was talking about, the fitness, nutrition, but we really, it's life coaching, right? Like what's on your mind, what's
Yep.
bothering you, man? Like, what can we work on today? And you help these folks break these things down. uh okay, this is the big deal. Okay, and then you break that down smaller to smaller to smaller to, okay, this is what I can do between now and next week, right? And the bread and butter, though, is the in person. And clearly it's very regional, very localized, right? So I do want to focus more on these veteran and first responder communities, because that's who I resonate with. Those are the people I can easily talk to about, they have this issue going on. Man, I've been there too, dude. All right, well, what's going to help you move forward? Well, maybe something like this. Oh, okay. Well, what would that, just kind of get curious with them, right? So we do it's a 4-month program on the in-person. We do 2 sessions a month, because I'm really diving into these folks that have real jobs. Their careers. They've got other work to do. So let's just meet up twice a month. First one is a virtual session. Second one is an adventure-based session. We will go out and we do hiking, walking. We can do some road biking, some mountain biking. I will eventually be incorporating climbing in. Starting off, the insurance was a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah. Oh
So
yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of liability risk
yeah, and
there.
I actually, my wife had to talk me out of it. She's like, I just think you need to do this until you get more of a revenue coming in. And I was like, well, you're probably right. Fine, fine. You know how the
You
military
say
guys, you want to do it
yeah.
right, like.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So, but I will eventually get into single pitch climbing and doing some stuff like that. And when I'm out there with these folks, I base it on, what are they going through? Our previous sessions. What are some of our discussions? And I pick these different locations. I have had a client where they were going through a lot of stuff, and I was like, you know what? We don't need anything hard. We need something that's going to bring connection. And they didn't know that, but as soon as they got out there and we were surrounded by all these different bloomings and water and everything like that. How did you know that I needed this trail? How did you know which trail? So
So you're doing some kind of intake, so you get like a baseline of where these people. This is gold right now. Just so you
yeah,
know, because this is what I'm learning for the course that I'm in, right? So you're doing this intake and you formulated these questions, so you really care about the experience that you're going to craft for these people. It's not just some generic show up. We're going to go on a 15-mile hike through this trail,
no,
enjoy it, right? Like you are actually listening to these people tell you in their own words what is going on with them, and then making an assessment and building a plan around that. That's super powerful, because if I need to just sit on the bank of a river and fish with you and talk, I'm not going to get shit out of a 20-mile hike. I'm probably going to be more pissed off and not enjoy it,
yeah,
right?
yeah, and then that's the thing with coaching, right? You can't. You're not giving anybody the answer. You're allowing discovery to really kind of take the lead. That's heuristic coaching, right? Allowing the person to discover what it is they're learning. So I let them choose the event. What do you want to do? And then I choose the location based off of everything that has come into play. And took that takes time for me to, I spent 6 years out in these mountains. So in different parts of the year and different environments. So you learn over your own experience, this is probably the right trail for this person.
That's so cool, man.
Yeah,
That is so freaking. I'm gonna have to come to Arizona and just go on one,
dude.
because it sounds like so much fun.
Yeah, it's a gym down here, man, and I love it. I love the. We've actually got a very unique. There's a reason why the University of Arizona really focuses on biology, because we got a unique uh, environment down here.
So what are your core principles or philosophy? What's your mission statement? What give us a little insight into what drives you forward to doing this every day.
Yeah, it's really focusing on folks that, again, veterans, first responders, but anybody that's dealing with burnout. When you look at corporate burnout, that's serious, that's real. So anybody really kind of going through these issues that needs to reconnect with something more than human, reconnect with the real
I
world.
love that.
And so
Oh man, that's so
connection, yeah,
powerful.
that's a big part of this program for sure.
Well, and so you said at the beginning of the call you had noticed the camaraderie that goes on between the army, right? Like when you were with those army units, and so I bet what you're finding with a lot of veterans is you're giving that back to them in
Yeah,
spades through what you're doing, and that's so important,
yeah,
because if you look at you mentioned Japan earlier, that's a lot of blue zone stuff, longer life, and that's what they all have in common. All the blue zones
yep,
across the world, I think there's 7 of them. The key to living a long life is surrounding yourself with a community,
yep,
and having the positive. Obviously there's a lot of other things, the way you eat, and being outside is a big one, big huge one. They find all these centenarians, they find that they all have some kind of gardening practice, or
yep,
they the Japanese call it the ikigai,
yep,
right? Like the
yep,
purpose. What is their purpose? And you know I think with what you're doing, with what I'm trying to do, we can live really long lives helping people and providing community
yeah,
and whatnot. And that's why I love what you're doing so much, because I love being outside. I used to be pretty jaded after the army, and thinking that, like, I did all the hiking I need to do for the rest of my life as an infantry guy,
sure,
right? Like I did all the camping I need to do for the
mm,
rest of my
yep,
life. And the camping one, like, I like my creature comforts, so
yep,
maybe here and there. Be really cool to go to the desert and look at the stars. I'd camp for that,
Yeah.
but not interested in camping in humid Florida woods anymore.
I'm
So,
the same way. If I'm going to
um,
go camping, I don't want to go to some campsite where there's 15 other families around. I'm good.
yeah, I'm by myself
Yeah.
somewhere.
I
Yeah,
want to be in the
yeah,
middle
for
of
sure.
nowhere.
Um, given all that you're doing, it's just you running your business,
That's
right?
me.
Like this is all 100% you. So, what are your practices? What helps keep you at tip top mental health while experiencing all the challenges that come with running this business? And I know I can't even imagine what challenges you accept HSA now.
Yep.
You've got some really cool things going on with your business. So I know with that comes a lot of challenges, a lot of pain points trying to figure that stuff out. Is it just being outside for you, just going on hikes? Is it that simple for you?
No, no. Definitely, I've got to incorporate. I've got to practice what I preach, right? And mindfulness is a big aspect of this program. So I incorporate yoga and stretching and meditation, being alone, going out into nature, and being again no headphones. Like there's sometimes I
Yeah.
really want to listen to this book, but I'm like, no, nope. I need this connection. And I know that there's still going to be a benefit on the other end because my brain, I just works better when we move, right?
Yep.
So I practice what I preach, but I journal at night. I I sometimes I journal in the day and I just kind of brain dump and living off of making lists and clearly identifying my goals, measurable goals. Again, being a coach, that's what you're helping people do is come up with these. I know we see it all over LinkedIn and everything, but they're smart goals, right? And that's real. Like it's not just words and it's not just bullshit. Oh, I know about smart goals. Okay, but do you have them? And I have my smart goals out, right? Like I had
Yeah, mine are on the whiteboard behind us. Yeah.
nice. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
They just, you know, I mean, yeah, it's all over LinkedIn for good reason, right?
Yeah.
And and
And for some people it could
it's
just be
so fun.
words, right? And it's like, well, no, it's more than that. You've got to take action. That's my word of the year. Action.
Take action.
And
Yeah.
so it's incorporating all of these little things, making a routine out of it, right? And again, something the military is very good at establishing these routines. It's just we're used to someone creating that routine for us and we working around it. And then so we create our own little mic. But now as an entrepreneur, it's up to you. So dig in on that discipline that you've been taught and instill that into how you're going to run your business. All right, well, this is how I would do it if I was still over here doing this. Okay, write that
Take
down.
action.
Do it.
Yep.
Turn it into an op plan. I have an operations plan, a business plan, an emergency evacuation plan, a risk management plan. I wrote all of those things.
Right.
So I don't have to sit there and question, well, what about this? Well, do I have that in play? Oh shit, I don't. Take note of that.
Guess I got to put it in
Take
there.
note of that.
Yep.
And
Yep.
so, and then even listen to the feedback from clients. HSA and FSA was a big one. It's a big one. And here's the thing too is I am an LLC. I'm a business. I should have probably maybe created something more of a nonprofit, but there's a lot of things that go into creating a nonprofit. You've got to have a board. You have to have your whole everything is written out already. And then you have to go and file for the state and then maybe get filed for the federal. There's a lot of things that need to be in place outside of a business. And for me, that framework didn't work. But I also know that I don't want to nickel and dime communities that need this type of service. So what am I doing to help mitigate that? Yes, right now I still charge, But usually I've done pro bono clients for the majority of what I've done so far. So I haven't really gotten paid at all for the services that I've been providing. But I'm also getting my business certified as a service disabled veteran owned small business where I can start competing for government contracts. So now that community doesn't have, I just have to go and find the people. You're already paid, it's already paid for. Don't worry about it. Just come and get in on this. And so that's another
Yeah,
route.
I can relate to how you feel about that, right? Like nickel and dime in the community, but then I also sit back and think I only want to work with people who are serious about making the
Yep.
change. And to me, the
It's a
only
great
way to
point.
mitigate that and protect my time is to charge. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Because I know the value that I can bring to you and I can demonstrate that to you, but it's I hate it, but it's the adage, right? You can lead a horse to water, you can't make it drink.
Exactly.
It's so true, and I just don't want to work with those kind of
Dude, I got to
people,
tell
right?
you, and I don't mean to cut you off. You're exactly
No, you're
right.
good.
Um, the clients that have come to me because they knew they wanted to better fix something, work on something themselves, made it through my program. The folks that I went and was like, "Hey, I think you'd be perfect for this." Oh yeah, okay, I'll give it a go. They all quit.
Wow, that's an interesting
Yes, every
statistic.
single client that came to me first because they were ready to take the step made it all the way through.
And you know what? I think that stands to reason because just looking back on my journey from July to now, July of last year when I had the ayahuasca experience to now, I wouldn't, for so I'll just put it out there. I weighed 311 pounds when I went to Peru. As of this morning, I'm 226 pounds. I never thought I'd be that light again. So 85
Wow.
pounds I've lost in a little under 9 months. May 7th will be 9 months.
Hell yeah,
So
man.
for me, I knew I was fat. I knew I was overweight. I was, you know, the blood work was bad. I was pre-diabetic. My blood pressure was all over the place. I used to blame it on the pain, which to an extent is actually true, just not the bottom number, the top
Sure.
number. And I would tell myself, oh, I'm going to do it. I'm going to start doing something tomorrow, or I'll start doing something on Monday. It's always Monday, right? Like it's always a Monday. And and the only thing I managed to do probably from 2015 until last year was the dieta, the 30-day dieta that's required to go to Peru, because I didn't want to piss away an opportunity that a veteran charity was so kind enough to give me, and somebody else could use it more than I could,
Yeah.
right? So I took the dieta extremely serious and then went and had the life-changing cheat code experience, and then realized, oh, now I'm ready. Now I'm ready to start,
Yep.
right? And so it shouldn't surprise me that the people who came to you saying I'm ready to make the change, are the people that make it all the way through your program.
Yeah.
And I think I might just incorporate that into my coaching business. I don't need to go to people. I'll just let people come to me.
Yeah.
And because then it's out there. Like, I'm not shy about saying don't contact me if you're not ready to do the work, because I promise you that.
No, and
Go
I was
ahead.
just gonna say, and I don't think that's not even including like networking and what you need to do to just even get the name out there. That's different because
Right.
hey, I'm gonna have the talk with you. I'm gonna motivate you. I'm gonna share my story. I want to bring you in to this opportunity for change, right? But you've got to be the one
Right.
to do it. I'm not going to be like, oh, seek you out and ask you to join. I'm not doing that anymore.
Yeah, and I totally agree. And I wasn't trying to say like you have to do the work
Yeah,
here, right? But then you're going to have to do all the work that is required of you to build anything, and it's a lot of work,
it
man. And
is.
then you have to learn delayed gratification, and you have to have the growth mindset. And if you don't have those things, and you're not willing to do what it takes to acquire at least those two
Yep,
things, you're not going to be successful,
that's
right?
true. And starting off is the hardest. It's so hard.
It really
It's
is. Yeah,
you're fighting with so
my
many
mentor
different
told
things, right?
like just like not having a clue, not knowing what you don't know, right? Like first it was, I don't know what kind of content to post, I know I just need to post. Then it was like, I don't know what to say to these people because I'm commenting on these people's posts who don't resonate with me. Okay, well maybe I should go find something that resonates with
Yeah.
me. And then it's like, okay, well, what am I fucking selling? I don't even know what I'm selling, right? And then it's you meet people through that adaptation, right? And they kind of light the way a little bit more for
Yeah.
you, and then the idea starts to take shape. And I think that's like an important thing for people to know, because there's no right or wrong answer on where to start or how to build or how to do it. There are certain things that you just have to have in order to do it, and without those things and the ability to go acquire those things, you're not going to build anything.
Yeah. You can sit there and plan and think about it all day long. You could have the best plan in the world, but without taking action, it's not going to happen. And
Yeah, and
I think it,
I'm
yeah,
guilty of
me
those
too.
things. I sat around for 8 fucking years of my life watching every YouTube video on blogging or you fucking name it. I thought I got to have a plan. No, fuck that, dude. Just
Just
start.
start.
Just start.
Because that is really the
Um
biggest step that needs to be taken. You're over there and you got this plan, and it's just like, well, some people are really good at planning and they're just not good at starting, right? That decisiveness.
and I think that's why, speaking to veterans, especially in as passionate as I am about this, you're obviously just as passionate, but it's like, who cares about the plan? How many times were you doing something in the Air Force where the plan went to fucking
Yeah,
shit?
all the time.
Every time, right? I think Japan once had a quote back in World War II, is like, you think you can beat America until their plan goes to shit, and then they're so unpredictable, you have no idea what's going to happen. You can't win
Yeah.
them,
That's
and
adaptability.
it's true. Like, yeah, big time, big
Yep.
time. Because y- you you have you have these like little stepping stone moments or whatever, right, where you find some success or you get a small win and you celebrate a little bit, and then you get, I call them higher level problems, right? Like the problems you didn't know could possibly exist. You have no idea how to tackle these problems. You have no idea even what these problems are doing to hold you back, right? Like it's just so unknown. And so then you just talk to people who are a little bit further ahead. You seek those
Yep.
people out and you get some answers, and then it gets more clear, and then you level up again. And then before you know it, you're releasing this show and trying to make sure all your email automations are set up so you can collect email addresses, and you didn't ever think you would get there. You know what I
Yep.
mean?
Yeah. And I think it really speaks to the importance of networking. And even for me, I got to tell you, like the importance of LinkedIn. I have, it's amazing the opportunities that have come up since just
Yep.
starting. And it's humbling. I'm in rooms. I'm kind of a co-founder of this one group called Iron Tribe, and I'm in the room with these guys. And don't get me wrong, I feel like I've got a pretty cool background. I've done some pretty cool shit. But some of these guys are on TED Talks and wrote books and professional athletes, and I'm like, what the fuck am I doing in this room, dude? Like, this is crazy. But
And that's the best spot in the world to
yeah,
be.
right?
It's the best spot in the world to
Yeah.
be, where you feel like you're so dumb that you have zero purpose in that room. Man, and I used to think opposite, right? Like, I'm the smartest person in the room, right? Because
Mm,
you kind of know. You definitely know when you're surrounded by people who are not on par with
yep.
you versus when you're surrounded by people that you are not on par with. And
Yeah.
dude, it's a great, that's the situation. If you want to build a business, hear this. If this is the only thing you hear from this whole episode, networking, your network is your net worth.
Yeah.
Your network is your net worth. And LinkedIn has been just as incredibly generous to me and super humbling, because I've met some of the most outgoing, smart, helpful, generous people
Yep.
there that have really helped me get to where I'm at on my journey and will continue to help me. And most of them say the reason they're willing to help is because I take action. And like, speaking to your motto this year, right? Take action.
Yeah. And
so
if
I don't have anything else for you, man, anything else you want to say? Anything else you want to get out there?
I will say this, and it's just kind of going back to some of these kind of SMART goals. Start by writing it down. Write down these goals of where you want to be. Make them measurable. I want to have this by this time. And then once you're starting to kind of establish those goals, come out with some KPIs to keep you on track with those goals. You got to have indicators, performance indicators that let you know, okay, I'm still on the right track. I'm still working towards this goal. That allows you to get to celebrate those little wins in between the big wins. And I think that's a very important place to start. And, follow the why too. Follow the why.
It has to be about the why, right? It can't be about
especially starting as an entrepreneur.
I know I was focused on money, and when I was focused on money, it just wasn't happening. When I let go of the money thing and started focusing on stopping even one veteran from taking their life, everything changed.
Yep. It gives you something to work towards. And that's the idea. You can't just be, I'm working on this today. Okay, yeah, that's fine. What are you working towards though?
Yep. Oh, so good, man. Tell everybody where they can find you, all your socials, website, any of that stuff. I'm going to link that on the show description and all that.
Yeah. I'm on positivityadventurecoaching.com. Just be mindful of how to spell positivity. But seriously, Google Adventure Wellness Coaching. Adventure Wellness Coaching. Just Google it. I'm the guy. That's me. Positivity will pop up, and then LinkedIn. I'm all over LinkedIn. Like I said last week, I'm kind of taking a little break right now just because capstone. I've got 3 little tiny projects going on right now, and I was like, LinkedIn can go on pause. But I'm still checking in, DM, any of that stuff. Hit me up. And I've got a blog on my webpage too. I write about these different things.
Awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, the father of Adventure Wellness.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Tony Tondrow. Thank you so much for joining us, man.
Thank you, Adam.
Super grateful for you, dude. Really, really enjoyed this conversation. A lot of good stuff in here, and hopefully you had as much fun as I did.
I had a great time, and I just hope that other folks are able to take from this, get some inspiration, and then really, again, take action in their own lives.
That's our show, and I'm truly thankful you've joined us at The Strategic Veteran. If our conversation today sparked curiosity, or if you're ready to elevate your game, I'm here to help. Visit thestrategicveteran.com for exclusive show notes and resources, or to book a coaching session directly with me. Take a moment to subscribe to our podcast and share your review. Your support makes all the difference. For more insights and daily strategies, let's connect on LinkedIn and keep the conversation going. Remember, this isn't just a podcast, it's your strategic advantage in action. Until our next rendezvous, stay bold and continue the mission.